Hey guys, Equinox is going to just be my tank roll thoughts on how tanks are in Dragonflight overall as the roll, and I'm just going to break it down into damage, self-sustain slash healing, and party utility and mob utility. So we're just going to go that in order. So we'll check out damage first. Tank damage overall as the roll is looking a lot higher than it normally was. In Shadowlands, you pretty much had to be lucky and hope you're the meta tank was like really high damage. Like we had Blood Decay and Brew doing really high damage at the end of the expansion, and at the beginning of the expansion, it was pretty much just DH doing damage, but it's nowhere near what tanks are doing now. Tanks are doing much, much heavier AoE damage, which I think is really good, and it adds a lot of fun to the role. Um, I don't really like when tanks do a little bit of damage. A tank was a pretty popular role back in MoP. People loved it. People loved the vengeance mechanic. People love doing big damage. That's just how it is. And I think it's good that they're allowing tanks to do heavy AoE damage. From what I've done, from what I've played, their single target is also pretty in check. Trinkets usually have been carrying single target, but tanks overall have like pretty strong single target. Now put out a tweet about tanks doing like 80% of a DPS's damage, and I think that's pretty much the good target. I think it's a very strong target that they should hit overall in a dungeon. I think that's good. I like that they do that. There's some tanks that are a little bit too behind. DK and Bear could be brought up a little bit. I think they need to be brought up a little bit. But Brew, DH, Prot Warrior, and Paladin are all in a good spot. Brew's ahead of everyone else. I'll get more into that in a little bit about why that might be. But I can see Brew getting nerfed a little bit, and the rest, the middle pack, staying about the same. Prot Warrior, DH, Pally, all staying about the same. Overall, I really like the way they're doing damage in Dragonflight. I think it adds a lot of fun to tanking, and I think they should keep it that way. I don't think they should let it become a little too crazy. If it gets too crazy and, they're just beating DPS every key, that's a little unhealthy, and that shouldn't be a thing. But overall, I think 80% of the DPS's damage is the target number, and I think that's really good. Check out Now's Twitter. He posted all that. He always has, like, pretty good tank takes, so I just wanted to mention that tweet because it was it's very true. I think 80% is I think 80% is a good number. I agree with that. Self healing slash defensive. I think they did a fantastic job in Dragonflight with this. Every tank I've played, even Brew, has been quite sturdy early on in an expansion, which is very rare. That is very not normal, and I hope they keep it that way. Tanks being sturdy is literally the main thing you want to do when you play a tank. You don't want to be squishy and paper and just running around and kiting all the time. That's not fun. Some people might enjoy that, but I think most tank players don't want to just sit there and run away from mobs the entire time. It kind of defeats the purpose of tanking. So I hope they keep it the way they did. I think they did a really strong job. They gave tanks so many defensive tools, and their active mitigation actually feels like it means something. Like SOTR, Demon Spikes, all feel like they mean something. Shield block means a lot. Shield block does a actual crap ton of DR. I think that's pretty nice. Warrior might be a little too immortal, but I think their weakness is still magic damage, and I still think that's fine. I think as long as they have a weakness, it's fine, right? Brew, after playing a bunch of keys, I've complained about Brew a lot on my streams. I'm sure you guys have heard it, but I complained a lot about it. Actually, after playing it, I think it's just a learning curve thing. Like learning to use your defenses properly helped me out a lot. Almost all of Brew's defensives are preemptive defensives. You don't want to be using them mid pull, except right before, unless the damage is about to come. You always want to use them before you take all the damage. It's not like meta or last stand where you can reactively pop them. It's more like preemptive stuff. So I think there's a little bit of learning curve to that, and I think that's fine. Learning curve to some tanks is okay, but overall, I think they did a fantastic job with tanks. Their defensive is way better than they have been in the past, and I hope they keep it that way. Blizzard, if you're watching, make sure you don't let tanks become paper again. We all remember Cardboard Assassin Season 1 Shadowlands. Nobody enjoyed that. Don't ever let that happen again. But yeah, moving on to group utility. So I'm going to go over party utility really quick since people saw the party utility nerf for Prot Warrior. They removed their party wall. I think that's because it was keeping them in line. You can't have everything. Like Prot Warrior had really good damage, insanely good survivability, and if they had really OP party utility on top of that, then you just have a Blood DK Season 4 thing again where everyone just played Blood DK. and I don't think that's healthy for the game. So I think they're keeping tanks in line with what their class should do. So we look at prop Pally, right? They don't have the most damage, but they have really strong party utility, and that's their thing, right? Like they have really OP party utility, and I think that's okay. I think they should have that niche and have their damage suffer a little bit because of that. So you have your really strong strength, and then you're okay in the other areas. Prot Warrior, on the other hand, they have insane survivability. Their damage isn't the most out of all the tanks, but it's good. It's strong, and their party utility isn't like OP. It's just rally's a really nice party utility. And then we look at Brew, very high damage, less survivability. They take a little bit more damage than all the other tanks, and they don't have any party utility pretty much besides the spell. Tiger's Lust, I guess, if you count that, but they have very little party utility, and they just have mob control utility. And then we look at DH and DK, and they're all just mob control utility. DK has a little bit of party utility with B-Res and AMZ, but it's mostly just mob control utility. And DH is kind of like the middle ground where they have like pretty high damage. They have really good survivability, but it's mostly up to your play. Like you're not just kind of like base tanky. You actually have to play the class pretty well. And not mess up a lot, but they're a little bit more forgiving than Brew, and they do a little bit less damage than Brew. So I think everything's kind of tuned correctly in my opinion. I think DK damage should go up. I know they're really tanky and very heavily self-survivability, but I think their damage needs to go up. I don't think it should be as low as it is. I think they should bring it up about where Paladin's level is. Since DKs are pretty much immortal, I think they should do I think they should be up to Paladin's level of damage, at least if not Prot Warrior levels of damage. But they shouldn't be doing like Brew and DH levels of damage. So I think that's fine. Bear, no idea. If I don't speak on Bear, I'm sorry. I literally know nothing about them. So if someone knows a lot about Bear, please post below. Give some really strong info. I would really appreciate that. Mob control utility. Let's go over that. That's the last one. So the top 2 tanks right now, I think, or top 3, sorry. So Prot Warrior, DH, Brew, in my opinion, are the top 3 tanks. They have insanely strong mob utility. Brew has Leg Sweep, Rop, Clash if you spec into it. Leg Sweep and Rop are just very strong mob control utility. Very strong. And then we have Prot Warrior. They have Shockwave, AoE Interrupt. Those are 2 very potent AoE stops, and then we have a good single target stun. Stormbolt, really strong, and then you have Charge Root that comes in handy sometimes. In Shadowlands, there are some mobs you could clip with Prot Warrior Charge, and that would stop them. But overall, I think it's really good for those tanks. And then we get into Prot Pally. They have some absolutely insane mob control. Divine Toll, Avenger's Shield, Hodge, Blinding Light. They have so much mob control. They have arguably the best caster mob control in the game. I don't think anyone can combat them. I don't think there's literally anyone who controls casters like they do. And DK obviously has a crap ton of mob control as well. Double grip now, which is really strong, and then mass grip if you spec into it. A long range interrupt, which is really nice. Yeah, all the tanks have a really strong repertoire of control. I think they should keep it that way. I think like tanks are kind of like the leader of the group. They control things. They deal like decent AoE damage, and they get their butts beat. So I think they did a really good job of like the tank fantasy, in my opinion. Like you are like a tanky meat shield, but they also kind of catered to people wanting fun. They want to do damage, and they also gave tanks their role. Like not every tank has insane party utility. Not every tank has insane damage. I think they did a good even spread. Some obviously need tuned around, like some need more damage. Some need a little bit less damage. So I think if they keep working on that, that's good. As long as they don't have stuff like happened like Season 4 Shadowlands where one tank is way too strong, or they don't have something like Season 1 Shadowlands where every tank is just paper. I think as long as they keep it in this nice middle ground where every tank fulfills their role and there's a place for every tank, then they'll be good to go. Overall, I think they're in the right direction. I think they're doing a really good job of that in Dragonflight. So if you guys agree, let me know. If you don't, we can have a discussion about it in the comments. But that's pretty much it for me. Overall, I think they're doing a fantastic job with tanks and Dragonflight. I think they're in a very good spot, and I hope they keep learning from it and keep improving on it. Anyway, guys, that's gonna be it for me. Um, like, subscribe to the video, always appreciate it. Follow my Twitch and Twitter, they'll be in the description below. Join the Discord if you haven't already, and have a good one. Peace.